Hey everybody, my name is Pastor Henderson. Welcome to another episode of Take Action. I wanted to come before we get started to let you know that we're going to have a very, very serious conversation. And it's going to be in and around depression and suicide. And so if you know anyone who has struggled with any of these maladies or currently are going through any of these maladies, I want you to know that we're going to give you tools to take action. We will have a suicide prevention national hotline number that will air through the entire conversation. I want to send this as a warning that we're going to have a serious, sensitive conversation, and I want you to please be advised. Bring everybody you know together, but also make sure you're doing what's in the best interest for you and your family. We'll see you inside of Take Action. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Take Action. My name is Pastor Henderson, and it is always a privilege and an honor that you've decided to spend your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, night with me, wherever you are in the world. We don't take you for granted. We love you and we appreciate you. As we stated in our introduction, this is a serious topic, but I thought it was important because as we discuss our principles of the kingdom, we've been talking about order, we've been talking about the law of the harvest, we've been talking about love. We've been talking about focus. But today, I want to have a sort of a semi-combative conversation, if you will, or, an assortment of conversations in and around faith and around compassion. I think that both are principles of the kingdom. And I think that you will find that you are closely connected to somebody who's going through something that you may not know about. And so as we were thinking about how to bring you the best value through this medium, one of our staff members said, you know what, you should start interviewing people and start talking to everyday people about everyday issues so that those who are watching can get a deeper understanding of the Word of God through another medium. And that's exactly what we're doing today. So I brought somebody that's near and dear to my heart. I couldn't start with a stranger. I had to start with someone that I have a very, very close relationship with. I met this young man doing one of my favorite things, obviously, through the game of golf. Found out that we have staff members that he's related to. We only have 1 degree of separation. And what God has brought together, no one can put asunder. I want to introduce you to my good friend and my good brother, Dan Brown. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing good. Thank you for the kind words, Pastor. That means a lot to me. And I'd echo that. It was truly kind of a chance meeting. We were in the golf store, and just struck up a conversation, and it has been a blessing just to play golf, but more than anything, just to share God's word and to share my experiences with you.
Yeah, you've been so many things wrapped into one. Like, you got this ability. Sometimes you're a mentor, right? And then you move into a brother. Then you move into an encourager. And I always say, the best kind of people are the people that can be a lot of people in your life, right? And so I think that what God is doing in and around in our relationship, I don't know about you, but it's definitely been helpful and transformative for me.
Oh, without question. It's nice to be able to see you as the person on the golf course, but also recognizing that in that same environment, you're never that far away from the Word. And so it is, to your point, sometimes it's a mentorship, sometimes it's big brother, little brother, sometimes you're jabbing me, sometimes I'm jabbing you, but we always end with, without question, that bond that we share,
absolutely,
which is all rooted in faith.
I was just thinking about this yesterday. Do you know there's never been a time that we played golf where we didn't finish and hug each other before we walked off?
Yeah, no matter how bad I beat you.
Yeah, but yesterday you lost.
That's true.
Bring the mic up. So I was going to leave that out. Matter of fact, you lost the last 3 times.
Look, if it's working.
Oh, it don't work now. See, this is how we do. Now, let me just tell the whole story. So I was going to leave it out. I was going to leave all of that out. Well,
okay,
I wasn't going to talk about none of that.
In.
You brought it in. When I first started playing Dan, y'all, I could not beat him. This man would demolish me every time. I would go home and I would figure out. But see, what I love about him is that everything that he does well, he can't help but teach it. So he'll teach it. Hey, man, your alignment's off. Well, I start putting all of his stuff together. And the last 5 times, Dan can't beat your boy. I want to make an announcement to everybody. Dan has beat me for the last time.
Well, you know what? I'm going to give you that. And I will admit, because I had to deal with Bobby Tarver.
Tarver, where you at? You hear us, Tarver?
Coming back to me and saying, Pastor said he whips you. So, yes. But, you know, as the song says, everything must change. So
but listen, man, you know, I appreciate you because you taught me a lot about the game. And I want you to teach people today about another game that you've won against, one that you struggle with. But before we get there, just tell the audience about yourself. Like, you know, they know you're a golfer, they know you're my friend, but you're an accomplished businessman. You started companies, so just tell us about who you are.
Yeah, so, you know, I always like to refer to myself as just a regular person. And, you know, I'm the youngest of 8. I'm Frank and Lucille's baby boy. I'm Anita's husband. I'm Lauren's father. But most of all, I'm somebody who has always recognized that it's only through God that things have happened in my life. And I would tell you that I lived until 58 in this world without any real failure. And life has a very unique way of both humbling you and testing your faith. And without the support of a number of people, we couldn't be having this conversation.
So you went to TSU.
Yes, proud.
A proud TSU
Tiger. Graduate degree from Houston Baptist. I have worked for some of the top companies, Enron, Pfizer, Whirlpool. I've lived abroad. My wife has been very successful. And so it was in 2016, I was the head of HR for BP Western Hemisphere in Houston. My boss came to me and said, your job is going to London, but you're not. And, you know, at first, that could have been a pity party. And I called one of my closest friends who is a deacon at our church, and he said, you know, we just got ordained the day before to be deacons, and maybe this is just another test. And without question, you know, I prayed about it, talked to Anita, and I said, I'm going to become an insurance agent and open my own business. No problems. Just immediately everything. It's almost as if God said, this is what I want for you. But little did I know, God had not only that in store for me, but so much more.
So all of these different companies, no real failure for the first 80, 90% of your life to this point. Wife is successful, wonderful daughter, wonderful parents, and somebody says to you, your job is going overseas, but you're not. And you can shout out your church. It's
the Fort Bend Church.
Fort Bend Church, and you are deacon there and heavily involved. So life is great.
Oh man, life is perfect.
Life is amazing.
Yeah, you know.
But one day I was on the golf course with you, and you said something to me, and I've never shared it with you, but it almost made me cry in front of you because I heard you say something to the effect of, man, I shouldn't be here. We were talking about something, you said you shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything to you right away about what that meant because, you know, I'm a pastor. I've heard that before, and I felt something. And later on, you shared the story with me. And that's the story that we want to share with you today. I don't want to speak to it, but take us to the moment so that you can introduce your own story. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the part of the story where I need you to pay close attention because either you or somebody you know could be in this very situation at this moment. We're going to try to help you to take action. Life is going good.
Life is going great.
You've worked for 5 or 6 of the nation's, or the globe's top companies.
Yeah.
You decided to take a leap of faith and you're going to start your own insurance company, and it's successful.
Yeah, and so my insurance business was going great. But as time progressed, I didn't feel that same level of success that I'd had in the corporate world. I found myself going to work every day almost as if it was Groundhog Day. You know, push play, get to the end of the song, rewind, do it the next day. And that's in spite of having so many wonderful friends that I can openly talk to. And I found myself, I'd share a little bit, say with you, I'd share a little bit with this person or my wife. But it got to a place where the things that I enjoyed, my escapes, golf, tennis, family, I was hiding from them. I found myself drinking. I found myself gaining weight. And without recognizing the signs of depression, I was very depressed.
So, but let's talk about how did you get there? Because life is good, and I'm not saying that you can't be depressed and life be good, because I know what that feels like. But what do you think brought the depression on? If the family's good, help somebody identify this sneaky beast that climbs up on us in spite of life being great.
And that's the perfect way to describe it, because it's almost like the silent assassin, where you're going along in life and things gradually are happening. It's almost like, you know, you could be around somebody and you don't realize they've gained weight. Well, my wife and daughter notice that I go in the theater room more and just isolate myself. And it's in that isolation, I think, where I found myself enjoying escaping, because I didn't want to be honest with myself. I didn't want to be honest with my family or friends that I felt spiraling out of control. And so as all this was going on, you know, I'm still trying to be a good Christian. I'm still trying to be a good person. And I'm continuously helping people, but I'm never helping myself. And I found myself, I mean, the imperfect storm. In my business, you are not allowed to have people without a license sell insurance. And I had a young man who had a really good story. I'm trying to help him get his life back in order. I helped him clear some tickets so he could get a driver's license. And, you know, he thought he was helping me by selling insurance. And selfishly, at that time, I was like, okay, look, no harm, no foul. And I knew it wasn't right, but I allowed it to happen, and found myself in a situation where the company came to me and said, hey, we've been made aware that you have somebody who's not licensed selling insurance, and most likely we're going to take your business. And you go from being like not on top of the world financially, but being morally broke with the depression and feeling like, God, I'm helping everybody else, but why are you putting me through this? And this was Memorial Day time frame, and I'd agreed to play in a tennis tournament with a friend. And we're playing at McGregor Park here in Houston in front of a bunch of other friends. And just like golf, I think I'm the best tennis player. And we get destroyed in front of a lot of people. And Pastor, I left that match just feeling like that was a representation of who I was, a loser.
So let's just, there's a lot to unpack in there, and I sense and see that there's so much that's going on there that I want to talk about, and I've never heard it in depth like this, right? So we've talked about it, but I'm learning at the same time.
Yeah.
So you've got this young man that you're trying to help, and I know that that's you. I know that's you. You'll go to a golf store and say, hey, they got golf balls on sale. You want me to grab you a few dozen? I know that's you. And you're helping him. He's helping you. And depression is already in the neighborhood. But it hasn't entered the door, but it's already in the neighborhood. You're already isolated. And the enemy takes this one scene from a movie and do you start to feel like here is the real digression,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So now they say that we're more than likely going to take the company from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something key and that I want all of you all to hear. He said, I was constantly helping other people at the expense of helping myself. How many of you all can testify that you've been in a moment like that where you've given a whole lot of deposits, but you haven't received any, right? Or you've experienced a lot of withdrawals, but you've got no deposits. And so you're helping this young man.
Mm-hmm.
They find out that he's practicing without a license.
Yes.
And so what do? Do they take the company or do they not?
So we go from the May time frame to when I really believed in my mind that I was going to lose my business was the end of August. But going back to that day, the tennis tournament was the first time that I really, in my mind, had agreed that suicide was the only option. And I left that tournament and immediately went to CVS and I bought a bunch of pills. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a check for my family, put it in a bank account. I wrote a suicide note and I forgot we had company this weekend for the holiday. I go home and the company is there, and the first word my wife said was, "How did you do?" And I'm thinking, man, I got murdered. I got destroyed. And she looked at me and she said, "One thing about you, you're not a quitter." And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, you know what? Suicide's off the table. It was almost as if God knew I needed an inspiration. And I tore up the suicide note. I tore up the check, and I'm like, okay, we're going to fight. And I literally fought with the company from May until August. I was told that, you know, hey, you're going to be able to keep the company. Then I was told you're not going to be able to keep it. And so I'm on a roller coaster. Finally, the culmination was I was in my office, and I was reading my emails. I got there early, and going from you're going to be okay to we need to extend the investigation because we found some additional things. And I took that to mean, okay, now I'm going to lose everything. And there's no coming back. And I was dealing with the depression. I hadn't, gone to seek any kind of help or treatment. I hadn't been honest with my wife. I hadn't been honest with my friends. I'm existing day to day on this hope that the company would make it okay, not with the faith that God had something else in store. So the devil's a beast.
Man.
I go home and my wife says, hey, before we take Lauren back to college, why don't we take a mini vacation? Now, I hadn't shared anything with her.
So she don't know about anything.
She has no clue because in my mind, I'm protecting her. And I say, I can't go. I can't go anywhere. It's just me. You know, I'm almost indignant.
Mm.
And God must have tapped her on the shoulder because she's a very strong woman and said, hey, give him a pass on this one, because she didn't bark back at me. She said, okay, well, Lauren and I will go to San Antonio, spend a couple days with my mom. And the devil's like, yeah, we setting this up. Everything's going to be the way I want it to be. So I walk them out of the house and I tell them, I love you. I say, you guys be there for each other. They're not recognizing the clues that I'm saying goodbye.
So you're saying goodbye to them forever.
Yes.
And all they think is you're saying goodbye to the next time that
Correct.
we see you.
Mm-hmm.
Take us through your emotions at that time. Are you afraid? Are you scared? Do you have any apprehensions, or are you like ready?
So there were apprehensions, more about, was I going to hell? Never about the impact to other people. It was like, how is this going to end? And I literally was in my house spiraling from like 4 p.m. until about 4 a.m. And my last hope was every Wednesday we would have a deacon prayer call at 5 a.m. And I said, you know what, maybe if I get on this prayer call, God will give me a word to stop me from doing what I had planned all night. I get on the prayer call and I can't hear a word. It was almost like Charlie Brown, womp, womp, womp. And now I'm like a machine. I'm programmed, right? I go down because I stayed up in the theater room, just, trying to watch TV, anything to help me, at least feel like I could rest, but I couldn't. So I clean up, the house. Like things that I would never normally do. Just like everything was in its proper place. Not that I'm a messy person, because I'm not, but I wanted it to be perfect. So I leave my house at 6 a.m. and a little bit emotional. I drive past my sister's house who lives here in Houston, and I get to my office, and I'm just on this kind of go mode. Without any thought, I get some pills that were in my office. I get a bottle of vodka. I write a suicide note. I check my bank account. I write a check, and I book a room at Marriott downtown. And they said you can't check in till 1. But I'm so determined to hurt myself that I called. I said, look, I need an early check-in. I don't care what you have to do, what it costs. Get me an early check-in. And I go to the hotel without any real thought. I go into this room, and something came over me that said, pray. And I start praying. I say the Lord's Prayer. I read the 23rd Psalms. My parents are deceased. I pray to them, please protect me. I don't want to go to hell. And I take all those pills, and it's literally lights out. And
how many pills do you think you took?
I couldn't even begin to guess. I took a huge bottle of Tylenol, a huge bottle of muscle relaxers, a fifth of vodka, straight down, and it's lights out. I wake up at like 2 in the morning, from 10 in the morning to 2 that following day, a.m. And I wake up.
So let's stop there then, because if you've taken this incalculable amount of pills, you've drank this vodka.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining at this time renal failure and all of that is in the picture with
Mm-hmm.
the kidneys. But I'm sure your wife and daughter have been calling you from 10 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
to 2
Mm-hmm.
the next day. So but you have no recollection of that.
No.
So you wake up at 2 in the morning. What kind of mental state or physical capabilities do you have at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and what actions do you take next?
So I wake up just like I'm talking to you right now. I don't have any effects of alcohol. I don't feel anything except for anger. Anger that I wasn't successful, and it was just one more point of failure. That I can't even kill myself.
I think that this is important. Because suicide is so serious.
Mm-hmm.
And people decide to do it for so many reasons. But what I am learning is that whatever that door is that the enemy can get through, whether it's failure or
Mm-hmm.
rejection or insecurity, he'll kind of play on that same key.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what the song is, he'll play the song in the same key. Failure with the company, failure with the tennis match, failure with taking your own life. So it seems like the key that opens that door for Dan,
Mm-hmm.
at least, or for many of you watching, is failure. Would you say that's a
Yes.
good assessment?
Yeah, spot on, because one of the things that has always driven me is this
Mm-hmm.
sense that through faith, sometimes I've walked out so far on faith that God is looking back at me saying, are you sure this time? and he has delivered. And I'm saying, wait a minute, I've given my whole life to believing what God can do, not recognizing that God is doing his plan. I'm so busy thinking that now, just because I want it, God should give it to me. And that failure, to your point, is in that state of mind, a sense that God was through with me.
Would you agree to the fact, I heard something I could be mishearing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that as a result of so much success that you developed entitlement?
You know what? Indirectly, yes. You know, while I would always give God the credit and the glory, but I think I got into a place where, hey, this is just happenstance. It's just gonna happen. You know, if I want it, I can do it. And I'm just that determined. And so, going back to that night, I was determined that the job wasn't done.
So you take the pills, you drink the alcohol, you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, don't feel anything.
Don't feel any effects, no.
So what do you do next?
So I look at my phone and I see a million calls. My wife, my family, friends, and they're all like, you know, come home. And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not going home. And at this point, almost the bad little kid, you're going to catch me. So my mind was like, I'm getting out of Houston. I don't want anyone to find me. Now, I was in my daughter's car. I just bought her a Camry, and that's going to be important later.
I just saw you. Is that black car that you were in the other day?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I get the Camry, and I drive to Galveston, and I'm paranoid now. You know, it's like I got to get to Galveston, and I you know, I don't want to get stopped by the police, and if they stop me, am I going to stop? You know, am I going to run into a bridge and kill myself that way? And trying not to speed, and a cop behind me, lights come on, and I'm like, you know, oh man, I'm about to get stopped. He goes around me and pulls the car over in front of me. And
so you can't even get pulled over right
can't
now.
even get pulled over, man. And so I get down to Galveston, and it's no stores are open. I mean, you know, God is working. I just don't realize it. No stores are open, and I wait until Kroger's open. I'm like a fiend, and I go in the store. I grab, you know, biggest box of sleeping pills I could find, and I get in the car and I hide behind this hotel on the Strand, because I'm like, I don't want to be seen. But then inside of me, I'm like, but I want to see the water when I die. In my mind, I'm thinking all these things, and so I move the car. I don't remember if I had taken the pills at that time or not, but I moved the car, and again, I do remember 23rd Psalm, Lord's Prayer, praying to my parents because I don't want to go to hell. And Pastor, I wake up and I hear a doctor screaming at me, "What did you take?" And
so you've taken these pills again.
Yes.
I assume with alcohol again.
No, just this time, just a Coke, whatever I could, you know.
Okay.
I just want to get them down.
Okay, so you've taken another. So within 24 hours, you've taken perhaps 100 plus pills.
At least.
Okay, and so now you're out. Are you in the hospital when you hear this?
Yeah, so I'm in the hospital, and this doctor's yelling at me, and I'm thinking, you know, some very awful things. That I'm not gonna tell you what I took. Renal failure is gonna kick in, and I'm gonna be gone. And then I hear my wife, and I'm starting to kind of come back into my senses, and she obviously very hurt and trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm trying to figure out, how is she even here? And then I'm like, okay, did I hurt anybody? Because I don't remember driving or moving around in the car. And she says no. And so that was a little bit of relief. And then my daughter asked, where's Lauren? And she said, Lauren couldn't come in the room. And I said, well, you know, I want to talk to her. So she FaceTimed her. And I made this pact with my daughter from the time she was 2 or 3. Whatever's going on in your life, there's nothing that we can't talk about. And later I learned that that morning when Lauren was in the waiting room, all of my friends and family that were there, I had called them to indirectly say goodbye, but I didn't call Lauren. And when I saw the tears stream down her face, it made me say, I want to live. And now the doctor's telling me, you know, look, your kidney function is like 2%. Your liver function, if you can make it through 24 hours, you know, we can probably save your life. And I'm thinking, what did I do? You know, how could I find myself in this situation? And I want to live. And so, you know, obviously I made it through 24 hours, but I want to just give you a quick backdrop. My wife came home and without seeing any notes, without nothing, immediately said something's wrong. She got on the phone and called friends and said, her prayer group, I want you to pray. She didn't know what was going on, no clue. But she knew in her heart something wasn't right. So prayer group, people started gathering around to find me. She didn't have keys to get in my office. She said, you know, she wanted to go to my office. Maybe I was there. Couldn't get in. Called one of my last employees who normally wouldn't answer the phone in the middle of the night. She answered the phone, got them in connection with the property manager who also wouldn't answer the phone. Property manager couldn't get them in because she couldn't program the card key. Calls the former property manager whose husband's in the hospital having a stroke, and she answers the phone, gets them in the building, gets them in my office, and they find the suicide note. Now, where the car comes back into play is Toyota had kept calling me and saying, Mr. Brown, you haven't activated the GPS on your car. And that's because we have LifeLock 360 or whatever, you know, to track my daughter. But they said, well, look, write down the password in case you decide to use it. Well, I had printed out the passwords to my life for my wife and family so they could get access to everything. At the very top was that password.
Wow.
And through Officer Tarver, who called somebody that he used to work with, who was a detective in Galveston, who was going to be off that day, was able to get 2 officers to find me and get me the help I needed.
Nothing just happens, right?
Nothing just happens.
Right. If you or anybody you know has had any bouts with suicidal thoughts, haunting dreams, I had this conversation because we actually, in fact, want you to live. You have purpose. God came that you may have life and that you would have life more abundantly. And so hopefully through Mr. Brown's story and testimony, many of you will see that in spite of your pain, and I know it's hard to think about somebody else when you really are down on yourself, but somebody loves you. Somebody needs you. You've got to survive. You've got to make it through. No matter what, you've got to. And I know what brought this conversation about is Dan and I were together, and he said, man, that sermon you preached, I'm not going out like that, really, really resonated with me. And I've had to say that to myself. And I said, come on and tell us your story. And you wrote a book called The Other Side of Hurt. Mm-hmm. The Other Side of Hurt. Not enough faith for me, but enough faith for God, by Daniel Scott Brown. And what I loved about the book is chapter 12. The story itself, I had some reference point with, but I never saw anybody doing the book what you did at the end. Not to say that hadn't been done, but you actually had your friends and loved ones to give a survivor's account about the suicide and that it's more than just a person committing the act. And you've got some of your friends, I won't name their names on here, but your sister has something in here. Your fraternity brothers from Alpha, what is it?
Kappa Alpha
Kappa
Psi.
Alpha Psi, okay. They had something in here. Friends and mentors and brothers-in-law. What made you want to have them account for what they remembered in the book?
I think, so a couple of things. So what people may or may not realize is that when you try to harm yourself, it's not as simple as you go home. You go to a behavioral hospital because they want to observe you. And I would describe that as almost my Paul moment, right? And I found myself getting really close to the Word, and I said, you know what? I've got a couple of things that I want to check the box on. I want to share God's Word every day, but I also want to share it in a way that I can help people. And so I asked the people close to me, because so often, as someone who fortunately was unsuccessful, you don't realize the impact that you're having on the people around you. And I think it's important to know that if you're considering suicide, you're not necessarily making it better for the world by you being absent. You're leaving a void. And I hope as people read this book, they can sense the emotion of those closest to you who need you and would be there if you only give them a chance.
I want to read an excerpt. It's on page 63. And I'll leave the name out. It says, this person said, or you said about this person, was the first friend I met at Texas Southern University and a lifelong best friend. We have watched each other grow up, started families, lost loved ones, and many more changes and challenges. Yet through it all, and this is the next two sentences were powerful. Yet through it all, you have been my best friend. I know you are one of the 5 fingers on my hand. Somebody needs you. And you need somebody trying to understand the clouds of darkness. Best friends. I thought that was an amazing excerpt. The necessity of brotherhood, the necessity of sisterhood, the necessity of loved ones. And so all in all, what you're saying is that when a person decides that they're going to end their life, if we can say anything, because we're not clinically sanctioned to give you any advice in that area. That's why our team has put up that national hotline number, so that if you or anyone you know has thought about slitting your wrists or taking a bottle of pills or putting a gun to your head or whatever means you would take, you call that line either for yourself, or if you know that loved one, you are held responsible to call that line. When I go to therapy, my therapist always says, I'll never tell anyone about what we talked about unless you're going to harm yourself or somebody else.
Right.
If you hear anybody crossing over that threshold, you can't keep their secret a secret. You've got to do what's best for the person. This is Daniel Scott Brown, The Other Side of Hurt. Not enough faith for me, but enough faith for God. In the last words, what would you say to somebody who's watching this, who probably has tears coming down their eyes, or they feel like this is close to home? They're probably embarrassed. They don't have the strength that you have to come out and tell people, because we hide this.
Right.
What would you say?
I guess the if I could leave you with anything, it would be there's no amount of shame that can replace the love of God. And recognizing that when you can finally be transparent and truthful, in my case, the pain went away. And so I would encourage you, look, I'm a professional salesperson. I can make the world smile, but I hate it myself. And so by being more transparent, I have found it has helped me to express things that I held in and get to that next day. Thankfully, so with medical treatment, with therapists, I look forward to the next day. And I want to steal something that you said. 85% of the problems that you have never materialize to be even close to what we imagine.
Best words said from a man who's been there and done that. I want to thank you for your testimony. I want to thank you for your transparency. I want to thank you for your honesty. And I want to thank God that you made it. Because you made it, I was able to have a friend in the earth. One thing I know for sure, we'll be friends until one of us goes home to be with the Lord.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you, and I love you, man.
Yeah, I love you too, man.
Listen, if you are someone you know has had a bout or facing this bout, listen, be not ashamed. I want you to pick up your phone. I want you to call that number. I want you to make sure that you take care of yourself or take care of somebody, because somebody needs you. Somebody loves you. This book is available on Amazon.
On Amazon, yes. If you Google Daniel Scott Brown, The Other Side of Hurt, you can find it on Amazon. And look, whether it's for you or somebody else, it is a quick read, but I think there's a lot to be packed in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget The Other Side of Hurt. And here's the message. You can make it to the other side.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
And before we end, can I just, one thing that we have in common that we've talked about, but I'd like us to say it. Now, I know you messed up with Cam Newton, but I'm gonna give you this, the 5 fingers.
Okay.
but we say, you and I both say this.
Look like you forgot what part of it.
No, so look, there's I love you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing
you can do about it. That's how we're going to end it?
That's how we're going to end it.
This is what we're going to do. So, Dan, can we look in the center?
Okay.
All right. And this is for anybody who hasn't heard I love you from anybody.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Today, last week, the last month. They may be in the dark room right now.
Right. We want them to carry this because it's so important. And that simple thought of I love you and there's nothing you can do about it has carried me.
Ooh. All right, so look right in that camera. There's a young lady, a young man, a middle-aged man, middle-aged woman, a senior man, maybe even a teenager.
Yes.
Because we have some young folks that watch us as well. I want you to look at that camera, and I want you to say to them what we say to each other.
Yes. So I'm on every social media, and I will never end a conversation without saying, I love you, and there's nothing you could do about it. Peace.